one of my favorite bosses told me, "Plans change, pal." Sometimes plans change, and you just have to be able to adapt. The other thing too is, kind of remember. I think it really is just remember what your identity is.
Welcome back to season 2 of The Untrapped Entrepreneur. As you guys know, this is about marriage and owning a business, which I've talked a lot through the season, by the way, Andy, that we're in like a very small percentage of people that have, you've successfully stayed married and you've successfully operated a business. So I'm going to call us like the top 1%.
I love being a 1%er, man.
There's all different types of 1%ers. I don't know if I'd wish this one on people, but you know what? We're in it no matter what. But I've got Andy Cavanaugh here today, and Andy's up in Kansas City. And if you guys are actually watching here, he is decked out in red as Chiefs fans.
Red
do.
Friday, I realize we scheduled this on a Friday, and you got to keep the traditions alive of Red Friday. So
That's right. Well, Andy, tell us a little bit about just your journey as an entrepreneur, and then of course we're going to dive into you and your wife, how long you've been married, and just navigating being married and running a business. But tell us a little bit of your business background first.
Business wise, when I graduated college, I started with a consulting firm, actually called Anderson Consulting, which a lot of people may or may not know was kind of a little spinoff of Arthur Anderson. And right around the time where I was starting it, the name Arthur Anderson wasn't exactly marketable. So they got rid of that Anderson Consulting real quick, became Accenture. And I was there for maybe the first 3 or 4 years of my career, and then kind of moved on to some other corporate type places within the Kansas City metropolitan area. And 3 of my last 4 days working for somebody else ended with them saying, "Hey, everybody loves you here. You're doing a great job, ... position elimination." And, the last of those, I was a President's Award winner, meaning I was a top 1% within the company by performance and all of these things. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm a 1%er here. And you're telling me, you're getting rid of me. And it was just a really hard pill to swallow. And I had always dabbled in entrepreneurial ventures. The old story of, I traded baseball cards as a kid, loved the barter, right? Loved making deals, mowed yards, and, just kind of always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And a few other ventures that I tried while being employed, which maybe we can chat about that a little bit, kind of the pitfalls of what that looks like. But, I tried to do those types of things, but when you're not really able to fully commit to it, you have a hard time with a startup, right? That side hustle suddenly becomes, it's where things prioritize. And we'll jump into that as we go through the episode. But, it was one of those things where we had an online tea time software company that, I kind of felt like we were a little early to the market on. I remember selling to golf course pros, and they're like, "Well, all my customers just call me." And it's like, yeah, but eventually they're just going to want to go online and book their tea time. Like, they're not going to want to call you. And, and that was in 2001, actually, that we were putting that out there. And so
that is pretty early.
Very early. Yeah. And what we found there was that, we would put the software on our site, they would put it on their site, and then we would lose every customer that would go in, because as the guy's checking in for his tea time, their pro would be like, "Hey, next time just book it on our site. It'll be $5 cheaper per round," or, we've got discounts out here. And so we were constantly marketing and trying to find customers. It just never really took off. And then, about the time that I was getting that third thanks, but no thanks, love you, but, position elimination, we were kind of thinking like, maybe it's time for us to step out of the corporate world and take a little bit more control over our life. And my wife is a school teacher, and she is still a school teacher, but she was also at a point in her career where she was really struggling with some of the changes that were coming through in the in the school district with, um, I'm not real sure how to kind of say this, but when she started, it was very much the district's got the teachers back. The teachers are, basically here to teach. And as time has gone on, that became the teachers we don't have the teachers back. And here's a bunch of administrative work. And so, she was kind of at a point where she was getting a little disenchanted with that profession. And so we started looking at stuff, and we ended up bought into a smoothie business and as a franchisee. So why don't I set it down there and then and let you? I'll take a breath. How about that?
Yeah, no, this is great. I love these stories about full-time employees to entrepreneur, like that transition, because I feel like there's so many people that are on the sidelines working for someone else that have a desire to do something on their own, and then they say, well, it's not the right time, and I need to have kids first, or have young kids, or the economy's bad, or I don't have enough saved up. And there's I hate to call them excuses. I mean, they're legitimate reasons to not jump. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I could find all of those people and convince them, like, if that's truly what they want to do, to jump into it, because it is an exciting business to be in, the business of being running a business yourself. So anyway, I want to acknowledge you for that, because I love people that actually make the jump, because it's not easy. And I always say there's never a perfect time to have kids or start a business. Like, if you're waiting for the perfect, it will never, ever come. You just have to eventually do it.
Well, and that's an interesting segue into kind of our entrepreneurial journey, where I think, so when we bought the business, we had one child. And the plan was that my wife was going to operate the business, and I was going to be more in the background doing the sales and the marketing and the bookkeeping and, kind of the not necessarily in the store. She was going to be in the store more. I was going to be in the store less. And I want to say, all these times all run together, but when we bought the store, we had a 5.5-year-old, and we were running along thinking, hey, we had a difficult pregnancy getting the first child. And so I'm thinking like, well, we're going to be one, that's it. Like, we're not going to have another child. And then all of a sudden, I come in one day and my daughter had written me a story that ended with my mommy's having a baby. And we're 6 months into buying a business. And, I will often say that if you buy a business, it's very much like having another kid. Like it requires that level of attention. Like, there's, so many things that a lot of people that are working full time, and I'm raising my hand here. I just remember assuming that, and I came from H&R Block. Okay. So one of the largest franchisors in the world. And I'm thinking like, well, every franchise is going to have an 18-story building in the heart of the downtown metropolitan area, right? Like, so what floor is marketing on? And what floor is IT? Oh, they have 3 floors on IT. Cool, and I'm thinking that. And I remember when I went and visited the franchise that we were in, their office was in a smaller space than my current office is today. Like, I'm wanting to say this thing was maybe 1,000 square feet. It's like 4 or 5 cubes, couple offices, and it's like, where's the IT? Where's the IT floor? Yeah. There's not even an IT cube, So it was, quite the eye-opening experience. Well, that you go into it thinking like, okay, she's going to operate this thing, and I'm going to be in the background, and that everything's going to be cool like that. Well, 6 months in, she gets pregnant, and 3 months into her pregnancy, we're told you're on bed rest, and so her in the store wasn't going to necessarily be a thing, right? So a month and a half after that, we were told you're in the hospital on bed rest. So now she's in bed at the hospital, and then I've got a 5.5, 6-year-old, plus a business, plus a consulting thing, plus trying to get this thing off the ground. And my consulting business, I was booked out. And so now we're trying to manage all of these other things with one of the partners, kind of, I think of a relationship like this is like a teeter-totter. And we were completely off balance because I'm just running, and she's got nothing to do because she can't leave this hospital. And And so it really presented kind of the way that we had to kind of change the model of the business that we were had. And it really just kind of, as you look back on it, it really tested the adaptability of, hey, the old Mike Tyson quote, right? Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And how do you react to
Mm-hmm.
getting punched in the mouth? And so we kind of went into that mode of, okay, we're going to have to shift roles and responsibilities here.
Yeah. Well, and I bet, like I did early on, my second business that I started was an acquisition in Leawood in Kansas City. And I was living in Dallas. Now I've got a business out of state, and I've been in business a year and a half. Um, I needed to create systems. Like there was no other way around it. I couldn't live in both places at once. Like I needed good people. I needed good hiring standards. I needed systems. I needed tracking. I needed monitoring. Like I had to become like a big business pretty quickly. And I imagine with you, you've got all these things. You've got to be in 2, 3 different places at once. You got to visit the hospital. You got to take your child wherever they need to go. And you got consulting, and you have a brick and mortar, and you have employees. Did you advance in your kind of the need to create systems, the need to create anything? Like, did you do things faster than you probably would have because of that stress?
Yeah, one of the things that we really did is, well, first of all, with the shift in kind of roles and responsibilities, the stuff that I had planned on doing kind of shifted over to her. Stuff she had planned on doing shifted over to me. But I knew that I needed to put people in place in order to really be effective. And because I knew that while we had shifted roles, we had shifted roles to our weaknesses, frankly, are not our strengths. So now I'm asking her to do spreadsheet work and bookkeeping work and stuff like that. And she's a school teacher by trade. She's a school teacher, and she's not a math teacher. She's an early
Mm-hmm.
childhood development relationship type person. I'm the one helping the girls with their algebra homework and stuff like that. So we're now asking
Mm-hmm.
her to do hardcore math and projections and pricing strategies and stuff like that. And so I knew that it was going to be a short term thing, but what the solution we needed to solve for was operationally. That we basically lost our operator of the business, um, and so we needed to replace that operator part and work hand in hand with that person. The good thing about being part of a franchise is there are a lot of systems that are already in place, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when you buy into a franchise, one of the things that you're buying is the system and the playbook and the ability to replicate success that has been proven in other areas. So thankfully, from that standpoint, there wasn't like, okay, we've got to streamline this and we've got to become more efficient here. It really became, okay, we need to get somebody in here operationally and get those people up to speed, um, as opposed to us being those people that would get up to speed. So
Mm-hmm.
it shifted the timeline for sure.
Did you ever get to a point where she said, "This is not what I signed up for"?
Yeah, it did. So after the baby came, after our daughter, we now call her Annika. She's no longer just the
Mm-hmm.
baby.
Yeah.
So when Annika was born, Annika was very, very tiny, very, very premature. Kind of, they went in and got Annika for health of baby and mom, early, as early as they could. And the interesting thing about Annika is now 10 years old, and she is, when we measure our girls on their closets in the house here, she's where
Mm-hmm.
our oldest daughter was at 13. So I am convinced that all of those growth hormones and stuff like that they were pumping into the womb have basically
Mm-hmm.
translated into her being a monster now. So that teeny tiny baby that came home, um, but look, I mean, the thing is like, you never have a favorite kid, but if your business is part of your kids, uh, they're not going to be your favorite kid. So,
Mm-hmm.
when Annika was born, and she needed that time here with Annika, needed to look after Annika to get her up and going. And by the time that Annika had kind of quote unquote turned the corner, we were really kind of past you're going to step into the operations of this thing. And it
Mm-hmm.
was over time where, she was just like, I just really don't, I don't really care about this anymore. Like her
Mm-hmm.
priorities had shifted, and the now having two kids, with one kid you can manage. Okay, I'll get her there, and you've got the store. Okay, you've got the store, and I'll get
Mm-hmm.
her there. But with two kids, it really kind of becomes more of a challenge of like just like car seats. Like people just don't people underestimate the challenge that a car seat presents on everything. And so she really
Mm-hmm.
just kind of got to the point where, oh, I don't know, Annika was probably 6 8 months where she was like, I don't really want the business anymore. Which at that point it was kind of like, you do know that we signed a franchise contract here. like
Yeah.
like
And we agreed
yeah,
going in, you were going to do
yeah,
this and I'm going to do
we
that.
don't get to
Yeah.
just like we don't get to just like quit, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so and the thing is like when you and I in my current work, I'm a business broker, business intermediary. um you can't sell a business that is less than 3 to 5 years old. And even if you try to sell a business that's 3 years old, it's still on the upswing. So you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
really get the value back in what you're not going to get the value back in what you bought in for it. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at, you buy into something like that, you're probably looking at a good 5 years before you would really be able to get rid of it. And now you're 8 months in. Well, you've still got a ways to go before
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like you can just buy out of it, because there's also this thing called a lease that's sitting with it. You've got a 10-year lease that in many ways is more restrictive the than buying out of the business. So
Yeah.
again, it just meant that we pivoted, and kind of we still had the operation stuff in place, but it just meant that the work that she was going to do on that store was going to be a little bit less and less. I was going to do more, and she was going to do more and more of the getting the kids to and from.
Mm-hmm. So fast forward, you guys sold the business a couple of years
Mm-hmm.
ago. You mentioned you're now in the business brokerage world. I am curious because you've probably had enough repetitions to see over the last couple of years. Married couples own a business, they're looking to sell. The married couples looking to buy businesses. Based on your experience, and then what you've also seen in others in terms of trying to make a relationship work and a business work, have you seen any patterns? Let's go to like the dark side
Yeah.
first. Like, people are coming to you going, we need to sell this thing, and husband and wife are at odds. They're maybe part of their relationship or lack thereof is part of the reason for the sale. Any particular patterns or things that you've seen there where you're like, they should have done things, if they would have done things differently, roles, responsibilities, how they communicated with each other, anything like that that would avoid a premature sale of a business at below
Yeah,
cost?
a lot of the businesses that we sell, we're fortunate that we've been doing it long enough that we don't really take distressed businesses. So most of our sales of businesses are retirees, that people that are looking to exit the business out of retirement. What I can tell you though is that their timing is one of the biggest things. So oftentimes, let's say that you've got a husband and wife that is a mechanic. They run an auto repair shop. He's tired of turning wrenches. His back hurts, his knees hurt, his legs hurt. He's out. He's done. He's ready to go. But they're 55 and 52 respectively. So then one of them looks at the one that's not tired, whose back doesn't hurt, whose feet don't hurt, who hasn't bent over cars all day turning wrenches. It's like, well, I'm 52 years old. What am I going to do for the rest of my life? And
Mm-hmm.
so the one that is not ready to sell can create roadblocks in the sale of the business. Deal's not good enough. I don't like this term. I don't like this. I don't like this. No, this buyer's giving me a weird feeling. And they just put these roadblocks up that make selling the business very difficult. And then they of course get into the spouse's ear about how, oh, they're taking advantage of you and you're not getting proper value out of this business and stuff like that. So one of the things that we have seen where when you have a husband and wife that are selling a business is them not being on the same page about both not being committed to selling the business, both not being ready to sell the business. That's one of the biggest things that we see.
Is there something that they could do ahead of time? Like if our listeners are married and they own a business now,
mm-hmm.
should they be doing some business plans? Should they be meeting saying, hey, we need to have an exit plan here, make sure we agree on that? What's the right price? Like, is there anything that you'd recommend there to avoid that?
Yeah, I'll plug our website at kcapex.com. So we have tools. They're free to take. You don't even have to talk to me if you don't want to. Now, if you want the in-depth stuff, you're going to have to talk to me, right? But we have surveys that are out on our website that measure three things. There's one that will measure how ready is your business to sell. So it's going to assess your business in 8 different categories. Is the business ready to sell? The other 2 are going to measure the owner. They're going to measure, it's called a pre-score, personal readiness to exit score. That's going to measure how ready is the owner to exit. And what it can do is it's going to look at the owner's emotions, attitude, and philosophy on exiting. And it'll ask questions like, if you were holding a big event and you were going to invite people to this, say, a wedding, child's wedding, would they be everyone I've worked with? Or would it be nobody that I worked with? And that counts suppliers and customers and employees, right? So what it looks at is, based on how you answer those questions, if you're going to exit the business, is your identity so wrapped up in that business? It's got your name on it. It's got, the Cavanaugh agency, and hey, everybody that I'm inviting, it's going to be an attorney that I've worked with, an accountant. It's going to be all these people, these sellers, my colleagues. I have no friends outside of this business. That will show, like, you as the owner, you might not be ready to exit this business. The other thing too and then the third one is, can you sell this business for enough money to live on? Like, the biggest challenge we often see with business owners is they don't really have a great idea of how much their business is worth. So every year when I go in and I talk to my financial advisor and we do our financial plan and stuff like that, he's like, how much is your business worth? Yeah, man, it's got to be worth at least 12 million. Easy 12 million, right? Okay. Yeah. So, okay, that's about 6 times revenue. Yep. Sounds right. Business is worth that. Right. So then when I go to sell and I'm under the pretense my business is worth $12 million, and I go to market and I'm given a valuation by a certified appraiser, I'm given a valuation by a business broker like myself, go through a tool like this where I enter my stats in, and I find out that my business is worth $900,000. But I'm to my retirement plan. Well, you're not to your retirement plan because you're not getting good inputs in there. So, we always tell people, like, if you're looking at retiring, if you're looking at exiting these businesses, 3 to 5 years minimum is where you really need to be. You really need to be looking at, if we were going to take a trip, you don't just get in the car and just start driving, right? You at least have a destination in mind. We're going to go to Texas. We're going to go to California. We're going to go to Florida. But you don't just, let's just get in there and go, and we'll see what happens. So,
some people do that and then get lost.
Yeah, they do.
And they run out of money.
Right. Yeah. And then next thing you know, you're stuck in, someplace you don't want to be. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you one of the things that my wife and I did, and she brought it up yesterday. It was really funny. She said, and our iPhone note popped up recently. I guess it was like an update or something, but we share these iPhone notes with our goals. And so we'll sit down at least once a year, usually twice a year, and we'll kind of put out our plan. We put numbers on it, like how much money we want in the bank, and, if we're looking to sell the business or not at a certain period of time. And the note kind of popped up and we got a laugh out of it because she's like, well, we set this and this goal and it never happened, but we're both really happy with where we are. And we just continue to meet up and reset expectations. So I think too, even if you decide something at the very beginning, like you said, life changes, things change, kid happens, premature pregnancy, whatever. But I've gotten a lot of benefit out of that. And this little shared iPhone note gives us access to it. And then we'll put little check boxes. So every time we accomplish something in there, when we hit the little checkbox, it updates both of us like, hey, this was accomplished, this got done. And for us, it's not about, being 100% to plan. It's just the fact that we did plan and that we were both working towards the same
Yeah.
thing. It's been really
Yeah,
helpful.
100%. I mean, what we'll see too is that a lot of married folks, as they're looking at exiting, they have a different idea of what retirement or what that exit looks like. And I think I mean, it doesn't matter really what the relationship is, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a friend, whether it's a business relationship or whatever. Communication, as soon as the communication starts to break down or starts to deviate, and we stop communicating, that's when really you start seeing things splinter. I mean, I think that as long as both parties are communicating, they can disagree. But as long as they're communicating and they're open with each other and they're honest with each other, I think that's the thing that's going to hold a marriage and a business together. Because there were several franchisees that we knew of that started these businesses together and ultimately ended up divorced. I mean, there's a lot of stress that these businesses can put on. And, similar to what you and your wife are doing is you got to realize who's on your team. And, that everybody's being a good teammate and everybody's being working towards the same goal in mind. But you do see a lot of married couples that own a business together and they start pointing fingers, and we all see how those teams ultimately end up.
So what about, since you guys do work with, you don't work with distressed, you work with successful businesses that maybe have done a little bit better job of planning, or for whatever reason have gotten to a successful sale. The married couples that have come to you that have successfully sold a business for the amount that they wanted to sell it for or more, have you seen any patterns there? Any specifics? Like, are they most of them doing date nights every week, or most of them, doing some sort of planning with a financial advisor? Like, any commonalities there for success?
Yeah. So planning, just in general, can't really speak to date nights and stuff like that. What I can tell you is that we have worked with a lot of married couples that when they first come in and talk to us are bragging about the number of hours that they work. Startup entrepreneurs take pride in the fact that they work 15, 16-hour days. And we recently sold one that over the period of 5 years, they were in the 15, hey, we worked 15, 16 hours a day together and, all of that, to at the end, wow, when we sold the business, they were working a combined 15 hours a week. And they were enjoying each other. They were enjoying each other's company outside of the office. But it took them a little bit of time to really kind of let go of the working 15, 16 hours. I think a lot of it has to do with, where does your identity lie? My wife and I, as I mentioned, we now have a 17-year-old. And we have really, when you have two kids under 16 and you have to take them everywhere. We have gotten a lot of our life back of us being a couple based on now having a 17-year-old that can drive. By letting that responsibility of now we do miss car time. I miss the drop-offs at school and, the car time and what's going on with that. But my wife and I have picked up activities that we do together that are not those activities of, hey, let's go sit at one of the girls' soccer games, or let's go sit at one of the girls' basketball games. They're activities that we do together. We play pickleball together. And we have a blast doing it. And, it turns out we're actually pretty okay-ish at it. So, we're not a complete embarrassment when we go out there. But I think that that's what you see. One of the fears that we see with startup entrepreneurs, and when I say startup entrepreneurs, I'm talking about some of these people have had these businesses for 35 years, and that's what they've done is they just work 15 hours a week, 15 hours a day in that business. And I think some of the fear is like, well, what will I do? What will we do together? And then as they start to release some of those responsibilities, like, well, I guess I don't have to be the guy that takes every email and sends somebody the tracking number. Thanks for your order, Ben. Here's your tracking number. I guess I probably could have somebody else do that, right? And then all of a sudden they find out like, oh yeah, actually, once upon a time, me and this person used to go out and have a lot of fun. And
Mm-hmm.
so it really is that just being able to figure out what they enjoy together, working together, whether it's, and a lot of them have gone out and I had a recent couple that I remember when I went in, she ran the office, he ran the warehouse, and I sat down with her and I was just like, well, Mona, what are you going to do after retirement? She's like, I don't know, Andy. I don't know. I just don't know. And I was like, well, why don't you and Keith bring your 3 dogs to work? Why don't you guys just go volunteer at an animal shelter? And the Christmas card that I got from them this year was P.S. We're loving our time at the animal shelter. So they will find things to do, but I think the default
Mm-hmm.
is let's just work in the business, and then once they figure out that, hey, there's other things that we can do and enjoy, and oh, by the way, the business is doing just fine. Those are the ones that exit, and they exit good with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. I want to take a quick commercial break here, Andy. I didn't tell you about
Okay,
this, but I've got a business that I really love because it's mine.
let's go.
But before I do that, I want you to think about answer to this question as we start to wrap up here. Um, Looking back, your own personal experience, looking at some of the married couples that you've seen in business that have sold successfully, some of the challenges. Um, is just any advice for listeners that let's just take maybe our average listener in season 2, I'm assuming is married with a business, right? And maybe married at 6 months, maybe married 30 years, but just any advice based on all of your experience, because you are kind of a unique being. You may be in the top half
Look at me.
percent. We'll go cut you in on another half that, not only have you lived this personally, but you're actually working with people who have lived it, which will be season 3 will be about that, talking to guys like you that work with many entrepreneurs. But just any advice that you would give someone that's kind of in this world where they haven't sold the business, they're married, they're trying to make both of these things work. So think about that. But I want to tell you guys about thegentstore.com. Andy, I don't think is a customer yet. He will be after this because it's exciting. He's going to go to the Gent Store. We've got over 3,000 products on the Gent Store. We launched it just recently. It's an offshoot of the Gent's Place, which you guys know is our we're calling it our Barber and Business Club. The Gent Store has all these amazing products, and you get 20% back of your purchase goes towards your annual membership at the Gent's Place. You can buy leather bags. We're going to have motorcycles on there soon. You can buy coffee, everything in between. So, Andy, we don't have any Chiefs gear, unfortunately, yet. I know that's how to woo you into the Gent Store, but maybe you drink coffee or something like that. You'll find something on there. But use Untrapped as the promo code for free shipping. You can only get that here. Otherwise, it's $9.99. All right, Andy, what do you think? What's some advice you have for some of these married couples that are out there manifesting their own destiny, running their own business?
Yeah, number one would be just be adaptable. Understand that the best laid plans, similar that we've talked around here today, that they don't always go that way. Things happen, life happens. As one of my favorite bosses told me, plans change, pal. So sometimes plans change, and you just have to be able to adapt. The other thing too is kind of remember. I think it really is just remember what your identity is. Something that my wife and I we worked really hard on, and we did a good job of remembering that prioritization and our identity was not wrapped up in this smoothie place. Like that was temporary. We had committed to each other for forever, and so businesses come, businesses go. Those of us that have been entrepreneurs understand that, hey, in a matter of 4 or 5 years, I could move on from this thing. Especially for those that are the startups. Like if you're a starter, you're going to build that thing to some point. You're going to exit, and then you're going to go right back to something else. And so tying your identity too closely to the business and not close enough to who you are as a couple, I think that's one of the things that you had asked earlier about those that might not be as successful. I think when you get overly identified with the business and not with your partner, that's where you might see things getting in trouble. So I think one of the things that the the thing that we did is we just really maintained that commitment to each other. Because let's be honest, divorces are expensive. So
Mm-hmm.
they're
Mm-hmm.
expensive, and you kind of see it like somebody will get divorced, and the first one is the hardest, and then they just become easier, but they're still
Mm-hmm.
expensive the whole way. And so
Mm-hmm.
we kind of made that business decision too to stick around. And turns out that we actually still like each other and probably still love each other. So yeah, keep your identity separate as far as business versus personal.
Yeah, and you made me think of something too that I talk about with our managers is that I think of going to Kansas City Chiefs here in sports analogy is like I think of our business units as sports teams, and I don't have an expectation that everybody is going to stick around for the entire length of the business or as long as I'm there. I'm expecting people to come and go. I'm making trades. I'm bringing new people on. I got to exit people out. And each year is my season, right? I'm trying to win a championship that year, and we get like I think our managers and especially as business owners, we get attached to people, and you go, oh my gosh, this person left, and I can't. What am I going to do? And what? And I remember feeling that way early on, and now when I kind of switched over to this sports team, I'm like, there's natural attrition in the business, and as a business owner, like you mentioned there's natural attrition as an owner. Like sometimes after 5 years or 10 or 20 or whatever, it's time for you to go and someone else to come in and take the reins and take it to the next level. Um, so for me, that was just resetting my expectation was helpful. So now I'm okay with someone leaving, right? And I would be okay with me leaving at a certain point when it's the right time to go. And then I also like what you said too about having this foundation set as a couple, like, hey, we are going to be good no matter what. The business hopefully will be successful. We're going to do everything we can, but having a foundation to work from where it's like non-negotiables. We're not going to cross certain lines. We're going to make sure that this is intact. And I've seen, and I'm sure you have too, I've seen people kind of violate that and they get wrapped up and they are one of my friends who's been on the podcast twice wrote a book called The Good Entrepreneur. And he realized when he sold his business, everything went with the business. His identity went with the business. He ended up writing a really great book about it. I've seen that happen so many times. So I think it's great advice to, if you're in the middle of your journey, maybe you're 15, 16 hours a day and all your friends are in the business and everything's in the business. And what would you do? Now's the time to take a step back and reflect on that, maybe adjust your
Yeah.
trajectory.
Yeah, I mean, there's always time to change course, and one of the things that we talked about within those assessments that we offer is there's a right time to sell your business. Like just balancing of a portfolio. Like we all want to balance portfolio. Well, if your business grows to a point where your business is now 70-80% of your portfolio of the value of what you've got, I mean, it might be time to reassess. Like, hey, is it time for me to sell a portion of this particular business, take a step out and try something new? And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that kind of constantly reassessing, and where are we today, and is this a journey that we still need to be? Because you can't sell a business if you've peaked it. Like somebody that's going to buy it has to be able to take it somewhere, and so
Mm-hmm.
you want to make sure that what you're leaving is that you're leaving the best of them, and also leaving the best of yourself for those people that you love and the people that are around you. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Andy, I love what you've shared. I'm sure some of our listeners would like to stay in touch with you. You mentioned a website address. If you mention that again, and the business name, and how to reach out to you personally, if anyone would like to, if you're willing to give out your, any contact
Yeah,
info.
so our business is called Apex Business Advisors. We're a business brokers. We're located in Kansas City. Therefore, we are required to wear red on Fridays, in season and out of season. So, but we work. nationwide, except for a few states that require special licenses, like those weird states like California and and Florida. But we're pretty much nationwide. KCApex.com is our website, and I can be reached at Andy, ANDY, at KCApex.com. Love talking to people about their business and their business journey, and how we can help. And a lot of times it's not even necessarily about, like, don't call us when you're ready to sell the business. Call us in advance of that, because we can also connect you. We have a wealth of professionals that we are in contact with that can help you get your business sale ready. So the worst clients we have are the ones that come in on Friday wanting to sell on Monday, because it doesn't work that way. So
for $12 million
exactly.
for a $900,000 business.
Right, for sure. So, but Ben, I can't thank you enough for the invitation, man. This has been a blast, and much better than doing my wife and kids' laundry on my.
Oh,
on my
yeah,
day,
I'm
so.
sure. Thank you for that. That makes me feel really special. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening in, Andy. Thanks again for hopping on the pod, and we'll have you back soon. Man. You have hirables and rehirables and not rehirables. You are a rehirable on the pod, so you made it.
Ben, you've given me so many compliments. You made me feel so good about myself today, Ben. You're the best, man. I always appreciate your energy and talking to you, bud.
Yeah, thanks, man.